You live in a world where everyone is afraid to tell the truth. You sound radical or you sound like you're crazy just for simply saying the truth, right? So everybody sees something going on, but nobody wants to admit something's going on. And then when you're like, yo, something's going on, people are like, this guy is crazy. All right? Investment properties are shit coins. The S&P 500 is a shit coin. It just keeps up with inflation, right? So all that money that's printed every year over year, all the money that's printed, it keeps up with inflation. So if you ever want to know what the real inflation rate is, it's whatever the S&P 500's return is that year. So right now, the S&P 500's return is 28%. So if your investments aren't up above 28% this year, you're wasting your... So think about it. If there's a bunch of new money in circulation, right? So that means the company that are listed on the S&P 500 have to pay more for their products, right, from their manufacturer. And the manufacturer has to pay for the material is going to cost a little bit more, right? So then the company needs to sell the product for a little bit more money to you, the consumer, to keep up with the inflation. So on paper, it's going to look like they're making more money. So hypothetically speaking, let's say McDonald's sold 1 million cookies for $1, right? So that's $1 million. And then next year, let's say the demand for those cookies goes up a little bit, but the cost that they're selling them for goes up even more. So maybe the next year they sell 1.1 million cookies, but they're selling them for $1.25. It's going to look like McDonald's is making more money, which is... So now this year, McDonald's sells 1.1 million cookies, but for $1.25 or $1.10, $1.15, whatever you want to say. But what's going to happen on paper is it looks like McDonald's is making more money. So then, these companies have to produce their 10Ks and their 10Qs, their quarterly results and their annual results, right? Their financial statements. And the investors are going to say, oh, look, last year they made $1 million on the cookie. And this year they made a little bit more than that, right? So the investors like, look, they're growing their cookie operation alone, not even considering the burgers or the fries or whatever. So although the demand did go up, right? Although the demand did go up, what's making up those gains is just simply they're absorbing all the higher costs to produce these items and to sell. Now, that's just McDonald's. Burger King's going to do the same thing. Subway's going to do the same thing, right? So all these companies, and it's going to happen in the car industry, and it's going to happen in the real estate industry, it's going to happen everywhere. So imagine all these companies that make up the S&P 500, all their earnings are growing. So it looks like they're becoming more valuable. So the investor says, oh, look, these companies are growing, right? They're growing. So people keep putting their money in. So when you add them all up in a group, then you'll realize like, hey, this thing, the S&P 500 is just simply keeping up with inflation. And this is why the number of the S&P 500 can go up higher, but you're not necessarily getting more purchasing power, right? So remember this, man, you don't want more. So let's say you don't want to touch Bitcoin, right? Well, it doesn't change anything. But what it does do is it kind of lets you know that, okay, I don't want to touch Bitcoin, but I don't want to just keep up with what I call the true inflation rate, which is the S&P 500 returns. So let's say that there's 10 companies in the S&P 500 that are producing majority of these returns. You would just be better off investing into 1 or 2 or 3 of those companies, all right? You would be better off saying, I'm just going a large concentrated bet on Google or on Microsoft or on Tesla or on Eli Lilly or whatever. You would be better off doing that than you would just putting your money into the basket that's keeping up with inflation. All right, that's my advice for today.